How to make pen pals. Rapport by email. The same principles you would use in a personal meeting or a phone call will apply for written communications, which are ever more important in people's lives thanks to new technologies used in emails, text messages, and chats. Despite what you might think, you can try to follow someone's tone of speech even in writing. Is the person on the other end serious or light-hearted? Is she writing long sentences or short ones? Using formal language or informal, several short paragraphs or one long one? What about personal language usages, like jargon or foreign expressions? Can you identify any trance words? How about hidden opinions? Find the form of expression the other person is using, and adapt to it as much as you can. If you get this mail, "Hey, checking for Friday, still going to happen?" Also, you shouldn't answer like this: "Hi Samus. I have investigated the matter, and concluded the most effective solution would be to schedule the meeting for the afternoon instead. Please get back to me, at your convenience, to confirm whether or not that would suit your current schedule. Best regards, Henrik Fagesius." A more appropriate response would be, "Hey there, Friday PRN okay instead?" HF. This is especially important in cases of email communication. Email has not, as people once anticipated, replaced the written letter, at least not in terms of how we use it to communicate. Email has rather replaced the telephone call. When we send emails, we express ourselves in ways that are very close to the ways we speak. The problem is that speech is entirely dependent on our use of our voice and face, or even body, to make proper sense. We need tone of voice, tempo, raised or lowered intonation at the end of sentences, emphasis using our eyebrows, head motions, and so on to really be able to decode what is said to us. There will be more about using facial expressions to emphasize words later on, but in email, none of these things are available. We use the words the same way we do when we speak, but without the framework to properly understand them. This is why emojis were invented, as well as strange acronyms, like LOL, IMHO, BRB. In case you don't know, they mean laugh out loud, in my humble opinion, and be right back, respectively, and so on, to make sure people won't take a joke seriously or think we're trying to show off. Using the same words, phrases, and descriptions as the other person becomes vital, as it's not only a way of establishing rapport, but also creates some level of understanding. An old shortcut: getting people to talk about themselves. The fact that the thing everybody wants to talk about the most is themselves is an old nugget of wisdom. Early master of rapport Dale Carnegie wrote as early as 1936 that if you want people to think you're a great conversation partner, all you need to do is get them to talk about themselves. After that, you can simply sit there, nodding and making an occasional encouraging noise. Getting somebody to talk about herself is, naturally, also a good way of getting her into a state where she isn't consciously paying attention to what you're doing. As mentioned earlier, it's a good idea for occasions when you'd like to practice matching body language. But most of all, getting people to talk about themselves is a quick shortcut to good rapport. Putting it to the test. Making sure you're in rapport. There are several different ways of making sure you're in rapport with somebody. One of the reasons for establishing rapport is to make you able to lead the other. So why not begin by checking if you can do that? Make a change in your body language or speech tempo, and see if the other person follows you. If she's following you, she'll make the same change herself. When you're in good rapport, you take turns leading and following each other. If the person you're establishing rapport with doesn't follow when you try to lead, you to go back, following and re-establish the relationship. Then wait for a new opportunity to start leading. Most interactions involve constant following and leading, back and forth, until both parties are agreed or the conversation is over. Where is the other person's focus? Noticing where the other person is focusing her attention is a good thing to do if you want to make sure you have her interest. You want her to be sitting comfortably, preferably with both feet on the floor or with one leg crossed over the other, so that it's clear she's not about to head off somewhere. If you are standing up, the last picture is a frozen Tai Chi moment. This person has started shifting his weight to one leg, started to move, and is frozen midway. Don't get that confused with simply standing with one leg in front of the other. We often do that, but keep our center of gravity back. In this case, the center of gravity has moved forward. He is standing still at the moment, but once the motion is finished, the center of gravity will be moved across the leg. The leg will stretch, and he'll be walking away. This doesn't necessarily mean that this person has grown tired of your company, even though it could mean that. It just means that somewhere in his mind, he's started to consider what to do next. Maybe he has an appointment to keep, or has noticed somebody else he should talk to while he has the opportunity, and so on. No matter how much this person wants to continue listening to you, you no longer have his undivided attention, so you might as well do him a favor and finish the conversation as soon as you can. Whatever you do, don't try to make some final, important points as you end the conversation. Chances are he won't remember them anyway. If you still have important things left to say, you're better off saving them for the next time you meet. So you should finish things quickly and make an appointment to meet again. to be absolutely sure his focus is on you. You would also like the person to be looking you in the eyes as you speak, and not looking past you, looking at your ears, or scanning the room for emergency exits, both physical and psychological. If you are seated, an interested person will also lean toward you slightly. Observe the pupils. You can also observe the size of people's pupils. It may seem difficult to keep track of things like this, but it's easier than you think. When something interests us, our pupils dilate. In a study, body language experts Patrick and Kasia Wazowski found that this dilation is 5 to 15%, which makes it far too subtle to allow you to discern whether someone's pupils are larger or smaller than usual, but still obvious enough that the actual change itself, the movement when the pupil dilates or contracts, will be clearly noticeable. What you're looking for, therefore, are changes in pupil size. Of course, the pupils are also affected by things like light and dark. In dark rooms, we need more light to be able to see, so our pupils open wider. The fact is that all it takes for somebody's pupils to expand is for you to be wearing dark clothes when you're talking to him or her. So large pupils do not necessarily mean that you have rapport or that somebody is interested in you. It might just be a reaction to the lighting, or an indication that the person is as high as a kite, for instance. So what you're actually looking for are changes. If you see someone's pupils dilate while the environmental conditions, like lighting, remain the same, it's a sign that he or she has become more interested and involved in what you're talking about. I don't know if it's true or not, but there are loads of books that describe how jade merchants in ancient China started to wear spectacles darkened with soot to conceal their pupils. Tradition demanded bargaining and haggling over the price when one bought gemstones, and if the buyer was seen to be particularly interested in a certain piece of jade, the price would obviously go up. Pupil exercise. Start talking low someone about something terribly boring, like the fact how the copy machine at your office is broken. Note the size of the person pupils at this point. This is the neutral size, which is caused by lighting conditions. Now change the subject and talk about something you know interests this person a lot, her children or her boat. For example, notice the obvious dilation of the pupils, which occurs as she becomes more interested in the conversation. It's just like watching a camera lens open up. So people tried to control their behavior as much as they could, but the one thing that always betrayed the buyer's interest was the size of his pupils. More recently, poker players have discovered the same trick. The next time you see one of the big championships on TV, see how many of the players in the final are wearing dark glasses. Other popular accessories are scarves and hats. No matter how good your poker face is, you still can't control your autonomous nervous system. Whether you like it or not, your pupils will react along with other things, like your pulse and sweating when you get worked up or excited. An interested person has dilated pupils, and someone who shows an interest in you is someone that you will in turn be interested in. It goes without saying that we like people who like us, doesn't it? In this context, changes in pupil size are extremely powerful signals that our unconscious minds react to in a big way. In a famous experiment by psychologist Eckhard Hess, men were shown identical pictures of a woman's face, the only difference being that her pupils had been enlarged in one of the pictures. These two pictures were shown to a group of heterosexual men, while were then asked which picture they found most attractive. The picture with the larger pupils was consistently thought to show a more attractive person than the unmanipulated picture, in spite of the fact that the test subjects were unable to explain why they thought so, since they couldn't see any difference between the pictures, at least not consciously. But the woman in one of the pictures had larger pupils, which signaled a greater interest in the man who was looking at her than her clone in the other picture, and this made her more attractive in the eyes of the test subjects. Beauty is definitely in the eye of the beholder and in how great we imagine our chances to be. When won't it work? Situations in which you shouldn't follow somebody's behavior. Naturally, there are some situations in which you shouldn't adapt to somebody's behavior. I would urge you not to follow things you think the person might find bothersome or unsatisfactory about herself, like a limp or other handicap. You also shouldn't mirror somebody's stutter or asthmatic breathing. A lot of people with strong dialects are very aware of this fact, especially if they have moved away from the region where it is spoken. Being a little ashamed of your dialect is not at all unusual, especially in larger urban areas. For this reason, you should avoid speaking in dialect if you don't otherwise do so. Generally, you should avoid any kind of tics or other nervous behaviors, and as I said earlier, you shouldn't agree with things you don't really agree with. Don't ignore your own feelings. There's usually plenty of other stuff you're more prepared to agree with. When somebody is experiencing strong negative emotions, like anger or sadness, you should avoid getting as angry or sad as he or she is, but you should feel free to adapt your own commitment and energy levels to help you better understand the situation and what the person is going through, and to help you establish rapport. The master hypnotist Milton H. Erickson said something clever, which works just as well for situations in which you want rapport as it does for life in general. Whenever you do something, if you notice that it doesn't work, stop whatever it is that you are doing and do something else. If you don't get any results by following somebody's body language, you should do something else. Start following her voice or her opinions, or follow her actual thought patterns. We'll discuss how in the next chapter. The tools you have been given now are more than sufficient for establishing good rapport, but they all hinge on you following somebody else's behavior, without knowing what caused it. So far, we have been content to observe other people from the outside. In the next chapter, we'll make our way inside their minds, to understand what other people are actually thinking and how to tell. Whenever you do something, if you notice that it doesn't work, stop whatever it is that you are doing and do something else. Vilfon H. Erickson. If you think about different situations in your life in which you made no progress, you will probably realize that the reason you got stuck in the first place was that you were stubbornly attempting the same failed solution over and over again. The simplest solutions are often the hardest to find.